Firstly, we'll cover a bit of background to Goldfields and also the Carbon War Room and Rocky Mountain Institute. And then Goldfields' renewable energy commitments and the journey that we've gone on so far since 2006. And then just having a look at why we are so bent on having renewable energy integrated into our energy security plans. And then the case for collaboration with the Carbon War Room, Rocky Mountain Institute, and the first steps and initial goals in reviewing the plans. The review itself will only be finished on the 16th of July, so we can share initial outcomes for now, but hopefully we'll be able to share a lot more in the coming months. And then assessing renewable energy potential, and then the initial outcomes and the way forward. Goldfields Limited is an unhedged, globally diversified gold producer. We have 8 operating mines in Ghana, Peru, South Africa, and Australia. We also have development projects in Chile and the Philippines. We currently produce around 2.2 million attributable ounces. Our vision as a company is to be the global leader in sustainable gold mining, and that means all aspects of our business. And the critical one that we're talking about today is energy and carbon. So in the renewable space, we think that is vital to our journey of being the global leader. I'm going to hand over to Sean to talk you through the Carbon War and Rocky Mountain Institute.
Thanks very much, Duncan. The tie-up between two very different organizations, both with almost identical missions, only actually took place last year. Rocky Mountain Institute goes back to 1982. It was created by a visionary called Amory Lovins, and it's focused preeminently on deep bench research and innovative applications of technologies that transform the environment in which we operate. Carbon War Room was created much later than that, in 2009, by Richard Branson. And any of you who know that Richard has absolutely no patience for anything that can't be created immediately, because once he's thought it, it's happened. So as a result of these two organizations have very different intellectual heritages and very different operational paradigms. Carbon War Room focuses on a limited number of very large projects that are capable of bringing about gigaton scale transformations, and is essentially focused on ensuring that there is always an underlying business case to enable it. So quite often what happens when projects like that don't materialize is not that the technology is not mature, not even that there's no finance available for it, but that people haven't connected up the dots in meaningful ways to enable that to happen. And again, if you think about the way in which Branson functions, that's an entrepreneurial approach to these particular things. As you go forward, however, particularly when you pass the inflection point in terms of the maturity of renewables, it then becomes very important to maintain that market-facing, market-directed entrepreneurial approach and link it with a deep bench of research. And the basis for the merger between Rocky Mountain Institute and Carbon War Room was precisely that, to ensure that you retained the dramatic capability to make real differences in important areas, but ensure that when you were doing that, you were doing it on the basis of a deep bench of research in a fast-changing environment.
Sean, thanks very much for that excellent overview. Jumping right in, just to give you a high level of Goldfields' commitment to renewable energy. So the key factors, it's supported by an enabling environment and top management. At a board and exco level, we have buy-in on renewable energy, very strong CEO commitment, and we have an energy and carbon management strategy to support integration into the business, together with a guideline and a carbon policy. And this year, as I'll share with you on the next slide, our balanced scorecard for 2015, proper integrated thinking. It's been integrated fully into the business through our group balanced scorecard. Key point that I want to leave you with on this slide, 2 things. Evaluating renewable energy is a business imperative for Goldfields, as well as advancing the low carbon economy. So 2 key things, business imperative, and it is the way of the future. This is Goldfields' Group Balance Scorecard for 2015. You can find more details on it on page 6 of our integrated annual report in the CEO's statement. And really what I wanted to illustrate here, and I've pulled out the piece on energy and carbon. So you'll see there reducing carbon and energy emissions. And part of that is our regional 5-year energy security plans. The integrated thinking part of this balanced scorecard is you can tie energy in through just about every part of this wheel. To give you an example, in 2014, we saved around $20 million due to energy efficiency and optimization measures that we put in place in our business. That talks to our 15% free cash flow margin that we're delivering to our shareholders. It also talks to reducing our debt. Shared value, a very key initiative in Goldfields. Biomass, biogas, and other renewables can play a key role in shared value, which ties back in to enhancing community relations and our social license to operate. The way you manage water in the mining industry is critical to the way that you can save energy. So this is a very integrated approach that we put into our business. And also CEO, executive, and senior management remuneration is very strongly linked to the scorecard, including my own. I just want to take you very briefly through our 6 key strategic renewable energy commitments. So it's reviewing the replacement of carbon-intensive sources of energy with renewable energy or switch to less intensive energy sources. No operation should go backwards to a more carbon-intense source. However, we obviously have to take security of supply and price into account in that. Identifying short, medium, and long-term projects, energy initiatives that will meet our IRR requirements, and then determine what investments need to be made and budget accordingly. And the 5th point I'm going to talk to you a little bit later. Goldfields has got a group goal for our projects of ensuring that we have 20% renewable energy in our new project development. So that's in Chile and in the Philippines, and we've made some good progress in that regard. And then our carbon emission and energy reduction targets till 2016. Excuse the busy slide. I'm trying to pack a decade into one slide. I'm just going to go through the journey briefly. 2006 was our first carbon disclosure project submission and our Beatrix mine methane project. Beatrix is now owned by Sibanye Gold, but back then it was a landmark project where dangerous methane was captured from the mine and converted into energy. We had our first carbon management strategy, and we had a strong focus on energy efficiency. Moving through to 2012, our integrated energy and carbon management strategy, it included the evaluation of renewables across the group. So looking at wind, solar, hydro, various renewable energy sources. We set our energy and carbon reduction targets then, and we have ongoing targeting of energy efficiency initiatives. And as I mentioned earlier, jumping into 2014, we saved around $20 million. So it's reaping good benefits for the company and will continue to do so as we identify new projects. We've also made excellent progress with meeting our energy and carbon reduction targets. 2015 has been a busy year. Some interesting things to share, most notably our collaboration with the Carbon War Room and the Rocky Mountain Institute, which we're very excited about and we'll share more details on later in the presentation. Our corporate office, we're leading from the front. We're going to be going 50% off-grid by the end of the year. We've already lined that up with solar PV. We're going to be covering the entire roof of the office. We would have liked to have gone further, but we didn't have enough roof space. So that's our project for this year at the corporate office. And we've also got studies underway as well to integrate renewable energy into our Solaris Norte project. Almost a decade of carbon disclosure project submissions. And the last one, we've recently had a project registered with the Emissions Reduction Fund in Australia for our Granny Smith mine. And we are looking at carbon emissions reductions of around 24,000 tons with that project. So we're very proud of that. Why evaluate renewable energy as part of our energy security plans? I mean, there's a number of fantastic reasons, and I'll talk to a couple of those. Energy is 21% of Goldfields' operating costs. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's a business imperative, and it's only going to go up. Energy security is vital for our operational sustainability. There's been a significant decrease in PV panel and component costs, and I'm sure some of the other delegates have talked to that in a lot more detail. Increase in remote grid projects. Gold is becoming harder to find. Got to look for it in more remote places. We need off-grid power sources. Grid unpredictability and load shedding we've experienced in 2 of our regions. South Africa and Ghana had load shedding over the last year, which has pushed energy security into our top 10 group risks. Dependency on a single source or service provider as well, and of course future demand exceeding supply in many of the jurisdictions in which we operate. Climate change effects as well. Interestingly, in Ghana, one of the reasons for the load shedding was the reduction in water in the Volta River, and it's affected the supply of hydropower. So one's got to look to other renewable sources as well. And of course, supply chain risks. Other key benefits, I'm preaching to the converted, carbon emissions reduction, enhanced reputational impact, and also our investors view the way that we manage energy and carbon as a key proxy for risk management. With it being 21% of our operating costs, they see that as being a key way of evaluating us, and potential for host community benefits through shared value. Background to the collaboration, I think based on the introduction given by Sean, and I'll jump straight into why Carbon War Room Rocky Mountain Institute, why the collaboration between Goldfields and Carbon War Room Rocky Mountain Institute. Carbon War Room Rocky Mountain Institute is a global leader in business solutions to reduce carbon emissions and advance a low carbon economy. It is a perfect, their mission is a perfect fit for our business strategy and our vision of being the global leader in sustainable gold mining. They have significant experience in breaking the barriers to entry into the renewable space, and the collaborative model has been tried and tested with other companies. They also bring together best-in-class partners to conduct analysis and provide renewable energy procurement for us, so that we can focus on our core business, which is mining. And also, most importantly, and I want to stress the last point, is that the lessons learned from this process, we are hoping will further advance the uptake of renewables globally. This has been our energy security plan development process. With the energy security moving to our top 10 risks in 2014, we immediately embarked on developing regional energy security plans for the next 5 years. That process is already well underway. They're going to be finished in mid-July. And the Carbon War Room has been working very closely with us through our group energy working group. And we're hoping to roll those out into implementation towards the end of the year and next year. And I'm going to hand over to Sean to take you through the Carbon War Room's methodology.
And please don't worry, I'm not going to use all of the words on the slide either. This is simply an overview so that you have a reference point in terms of it. Think about the logic behind this. Where are we? We're at a very interesting point where the technology transformation that is taking place at an accelerating rate across an accelerating scale. A large portion of this is pure R&D, but another huge chunk of it is the fact that the Chinese are scaling at scales that we couldn't even think about 5 years ago. And by the way, in parentheses, RMI, Carbon War Room, have a deep bench project with the Chinese government on the transformation of their energy strategies in place. So there's some advantage, at least, in knowing what directions things are likely to move in. But whereas what both these companies in their merged state do is driven by their mission, and the funding is provided by a not-for-profit structure, that doesn't mean that you can play around with a commercial partner's shareholders' money. So the approach that is therefore brought to this is not an approach of advocacy. It's an approach of analysis. You don't want to work with a company that you're trying to persuade that it's a good idea to in fact make this particular form of transformation, because then you don't have aligned interests. And then under those circumstances, a non-profit cannot bring the skill sets and the insight to bear that it is in a position to do. So company commitment is critical. Once you've got that level of alignment, a high-level needs analysis running across what it is that that company actually wants to do, where, for what purpose, is quite clearly the next logical step in respect to the process itself. Only then can you get into a detailed feasibility study and start thinking about what a project development phase would look like. And if you were to step away from it at that point in time, you'd likely cause disjunction in the corporate planning frameworks. So you have to have the ability then to be able to follow through to support the request for proposals by developing the frameworks in respect of that, and then actually assisting in the management of that particular process. At that point in time, Carbon War Room and RMI are out of the picture. There is no conflict of interest built into this. They are not suppliers. They are not executors. They have no intention of being an IPP in respect of all of this. The whole structure around this is simply to enable an appreciation of the circumstances technology-related, circumstance-related, based on a significant amount of prior experience in other environments, as to what approaches make sense for that company with the present stage of technology development and business model availability at a particular point in time. So, this is almost self-evident. What factors are you going to take into consideration? Obviously, firstly, the life of mine, the location in terms of geography and renewable energy potential, the existing and prevailing future energy costs based on alternative sources of energy in respect of it, related to that grid stability, and folding into the whole the cost of on-site generation. If one doesn't look at all of those in a systemic way, if one doesn't take that total picture into account, then one can't possibly give the best advice in respect of it. So the approach is an analytical approach based on a proper appreciation of the factors that are relevant in making the determination for the company in the context of its own operations. The rest follows. You start out with a baseline scenario. Once you've accumulated all of those insights, you model the baseline cost-wise and in terms of supply. You also model the other scenarios related to that. You try to determine what the ideal energy mix would be under those circumstances, and that enables you to get to the RFI and pre-qualification space. Once you're at that point, you obviously move forward to the request for proposals, the selection of the entity that is going to undertake it, and that leads you naturally to development and commissioning.
Thank you, Sean, which takes us onto the last slide that I'd like to leave you with, which is the initial outcomes of the collaboration between ourselves and the Carbon War Room Rocky Mountain Institute. As I mentioned, the full integration of the findings and recommendations from the review that they've undertaken for us, the independent review, will be integrated into the plans by the 16th of July. So we sadly can't share everything at this moment, but we thought it would be prudent to share the initial outcomes and the way forward to give you a flavor of what's to come. So critically, all of Goldfields operations now have reconsidered again renewable energy options as part of energy security in each of our regions. Goldfields South Deep Mine specifically, which is based in South Africa, is looking at on-site PV generation, 15, 30 and 60 megawatts. We're also looking at off-site wind generation. And as I was speaking to earlier, shared value is a very, very important part of Goldfields' business strategy. And we'd also like to look at a small biomass plant as well, which would support our shared value initiatives and the surrounding communities. In terms of the way forward, Carbon War Room Rocky Mountain Institute will complete their review. We're going to work together on the next steps to investigate the above options for South Deep, to move hopefully into a feasibility study. And we're also going to look at evaluating other options in our different regions as well for other renewable energy projects. Goldfields Solaris Norte project, we'd also like to collaborate further with the Carbon War Room and Rocky Mountain Institute going forward to ensure that we meet our group goal of 20% renewable integration into that project. Thank you very much.